When we're playing tic-tac-toe as X, our goal is to set up some type of triangle that will give us an opportunity to win the game. We could have a tight triangle like I have on the left there, where if we can hit any one of these options, or we could have a wide open triangle like the one I have on the right, where all X needs to do is hit one of these options here, the three different options, and they can win the game that way. Now there are essentially three different ways or three different variants where X can make their first move. There's the corner move, there's the center move, and there's the X moving in the middle. Now the question is, how should O defend against each one? Well, we're going to take a look at each one in detail here. Let's start with the first move where X moves in the corner. How should O defend against that? Well, I've highlighted in green the squares O should move, and the red squares are squares that O should not move in. Now, if you look at the question mark here, basically what that means is O's second move must either be blocking X's attempt to make three in a row, or in one of those four green squares that it didn't move on the first turn. So that's why I have a question mark in the middle. But the middle can be a safe move for O. It's just a little bit trickier to play defense on. Now the next question is, why are the red squares bad for O? Well, let's start with the top right hand corner. Let's say O goes there. All X needs to do is start making the wide triangle. So X goes right there in the bottom right hand corner, and that creates a problem for O. O has to block, so O blocks, and then X has to block. X blocks, and now X has two different ways it can win the game, and O can only block one of them. Now let's take a look at why the right middle is a bad move for O, and obviously the bottom middle red square is a bad move for O as well, and it's symmetrical, but we're only going to take a look at the one on the right middle for O. Okay, so let's say O goes there. Well, X can move right there, and that creates a problem for O because O has to block, so O blocks right there, and then X can set up its triangle right there. And now X has two ways to win, and obviously O can only block one of them. Now let's take a look at why moving in the bottom right hand corner is a bad move for O. Okay, so O goes ahead and does that. Well, X moves right there. Simple enough move. But, okay, O has to block, so O blocks, no problem. Okay, now X has the triangle right here. X goes in the top right hand corner, and now X completes the triangle, where X has two different ways to win, and O can only block one of them. Now the red square in the bottom left-hand corner is symmetrical to the one in the top right-hand corner, which means that we don't need to look at that. Let's move on to the next variant of how X can move, and that's the center. And how should O defend against that? Well, if you look here, I have green squares and red squares, and the red squares are obviously where O should not defend. The green squares are where O should go to make optimal defense. And since all the red squares are symmetrical to each other, we're only going to look at one and see why that is a bad move or a bad square to move for O. Okay, let's say O decides to move in this one right here, in the center or the middle. And okay, well, X can simply start the triangle by forcing O to go right there. And O does. Okay, now X has to block, so X blocks, and then X sets up two different ways that X can win the game. Now let's take a look at how O should defend if X moves in the middle. Well, if X moves in the middle, this is what O's defense should look like here. Now the four red squares are both bad for O. Let's take a look at the first red square, and obviously the middle on the right side is symmetrical. Okay, well, if O goes there, what can X do to win the game? Well, X can simply go in the middle right there, and then it forces O to block, so O goes ahead and blocks, and now X can set up the triangle right there, where there's two different ways X can win, and O can only block one of them. Now let's take a look at O's other bad move, which is the bottom left-hand corner, and it's also symmetrical to the bottom right-hand corner. But let's take a look at why this is bad. Well, X can go this way. Okay. Well, that forces O to block, so O blocks in the top right-hand corner there. Okay, well now X can just go in the center, and now X has two different ways X can win the game. Now, before we wrap this up, what I'd like to do is show you O's defensive cheat sheet, or a cheat sheet you should look at when you're contemplating moving second. Basically, the red moves are bad moves for O, and the green moves are good moves for O. And obviously, you can flip that around. So if you're X and your opponent O moves in one of those squares, you should know how to beat that. And this essentially wraps up our Tic-Tac-Toe strategies and tips. Thank you for watching.